good afternoon to all the participants in Sri Lanka. Very welcome to this training. I'm very happy to share with you today our, let's say, information and our experience when it comes to safety and also related to food safety, good manufacturing practice. Because the two are closely related, and as we will be discussing today. So today we have two presenters. Myself will be doing a brief introduction. Then Kees, and he will introduce himself, will be doing a more extensive presentation on food safety issues and good manufacturing practice. And I will be doing the question and answering sessions in between the presentation. So throughout the presentation, we have a few moments where we will stop also for the participants to ask questions. So I've been working with GLX for some time now. For my background, I am a senior consultant, as I said, but I'm also the founder of Profound. I started some 30 years ago with my business, trying to link producers from developing countries to, in particular, European markets, but nowadays it's also more markets in general. And that means I help them a lot with quality issues and also looking into market segments where they can end up with their products. Nowadays, there's a lot of discussion about sustainable production, sustainable agribusiness, meaning that more from organic and regenerative context. And also to reduce carbon footprint, that means reducing volume and adding to value. And one of the elements in value is always also quality assurance, as Kees will be explaining later. So for the current phase with the GLX, I've been discussing with a group of companies to try and see what kind of markets are interesting for them internationally, but also locally, because the basis for good production is also to be able to sell locally in order to also sustain your business more sustainably in a way that you have a healthy local market and a healthy export market. Kees, I think maybe at this point you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, Kees van Elst from Rotterdam. So finally, all your products that you send to Europe will come to Rotterdam, so we can help you when they are here. But before that, we can also help you to get them here. And to really be able to export to Europe, you have to be in compliance with legislation and with certification. Today, I would just talk about the general concept of good manufacturing procedures that are also relevant in your own country. But there's much more to explore to really set up a certified business for export or for bigger customers. But we will address these issues all during the presentations.
Yeah. So the reason for doing this training is that we get a lot of requests from the companies when it comes to meeting buyer expectations and quality issues with buyers in Europe, but also locally. And I was discussing with Lakmini on the Gotukola, for instance, and she's saying that she's doing tests on pesticides, heavy metal residues. But the same applies to fertilizers and let's say, pesticides that are all abundant in Sri Lanka. We also know in the context of Sri Lanka that Sri Lanka wants to move into an organic state, into an organic island in total, which means there's a transformation of the production systems into organic markets, so to say, which is not easy because if for such a long time pesticides and fertilizers have been used over time, then it means there's a lot of pesticide residues and fertilizer residues in the water systems in Sri Lanka. So that means that when you are a producer of agricultural produce, even if you think your piece of land may be clean, it can still be in the groundwater. And this is also why it's very important to do water tests. We will be discussing more of this later on. So what we will discuss today in the training is a number of steps that need to be taken as a company when you start working on food safety issues. So we'll be doing a brief introduction of what it means with food safety in terms of compliance with market requirements, with legislation, but also with buyer requirements. Second is there will be an introduction to what it means to have let's say a system in place in your processing unit, which is called HACCP. And as we will be explaining, HACCP even starts before it comes to your factory or even when you deliver to your clients. For this, it's very important, as Kees will be explaining later, to have a prerequisite program, which means what are all the requirements that I need to put up in my company to do right. Then fourth element is how does that relate to good manufacturing practice? And as final steps today, we'll be discussing what it means if you want to do all these things. You need to have a HACCP team in place and you need to have very regular HACCP meetings. Kees will be explaining that later on. Yeah, that's the program for today. So any questions so far? Are we fine? Camille, are we good? If there's any questions, please post them in the chat function. I will be reviewing, or Camille will be reviewing the chat function to see if there's any questions coming up during the presentation. Then during the Q&A periods, we will be answering the questions. So, if we talk about food safety, what are the issues that we are talking about? Nowadays, in an ever-transparent world, it means that consumers are more and more aware of what's happening with their foods. And that also means they have more and more demands when it comes to, is this food safe for me or not? We have one of the companies in Sri Lanka that is Posha Crunch, that's, for instance, doing biscuits for kids with healthy ingredients. But healthy ingredients can also be unhealthy for kids if, for instance, there are pesticide residues or metal fragments or whatever in the cookies that are not very healthy for kids. Even more, I mean, you know as well as I do that parents of kids are very careful when it comes to food for their kids. So they have to be absolutely sure that these foods are safe for their kids. So that's on the right-hand side of this figure that you see here. Consumer demands are increasing. That also relates to legislation. There's a lot more legislation nowadays, which is also publicly available, as Kees will be explaining also later. But to interpret the legislation is not always easy. It's very technical. It also means that we have to explain to the companies how to work with legislation. Then there is interactions with laboratories. So if you want to do tests on your water, on your soil, or on your product, it means you have to have good relations with laboratories to do the testings that you need for your buyers. Ultimately, that results in 2 quality standards that you develop as a company. So having said that, what does it take to implement all these food safety, this food safety compliance in your company? And we will start with that today with an introduction in HACCP. And as you can see here, what is the meaning of HACCP? It means Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. It means that for each and every step in your company, you must have a control system in place that reviews all the critical points in your company to be monitored, but also to be documented, as Kees will be explaining. When you want to have a full overview, and I tell you, it's a lot of what is needed in your company or what you can learn in terms of food safety issues and good manufacturing practice. QAssurance, the company of Kees, has a very rich database online. Everything is available. It's all online, as Kees will explain later. And on your left-hand side with the table of contents, this is what you will see if you open up the link that I present here, the QAssurance Food Safety e-learning for employees. So I would recommend and advise you, if you have staff appointed to do food safety compliance, to review this website and to review all the steps that are presented there. And we will not be discussing all of the elements today because it's simply too much. But today we'll do an introduction in the critical steps that you can do as a company. So without further ado, I think, Kees, I'll be handing over to you to start with the HACCP introductions. That is okay for you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bert. When we spoke about the presentation that was mentioned on the last slide, that presentation is really for employees in your factory. You can use the presentation yourself to train your people that are working in your factory. And there's also a test in English on that website. So you can even get evidence that people understood what they have learned. Once a quarter, we also give free Zoom training on this, so that you can really also participate in this employee presentation. Around 500 people a year join those sessions, so they are nice and people like it. And it's always the same. They will always talk about the basic principles for food safety, because every month you have a new employee, so every month you need the update, because we always say you are as good as de slechtste schakel in de ketting, hè? The weakest link. And the new employee without food safety understanding can be a weak link when he or she is doing critical food safety activities without washing her hands or whatever. Anyway, on the presentations before, we had this nice overview with quality standards. That one, the picture that Bert was already addressing. So the picture with food company in the middle, consumer on the right, suppliers on the left, quality standards above, legislation under. And when we talk about HACCP, the HACCP is everywhere in this picture. So the HACCP is for the consumer, because in your HACCP study, you need to identify what kind of product you are going to deliver. And when you deliver to a children, there's how can you say it? There's a requirement of your production process that it is able to be eaten by children. So the product information, the end user of your product, is very important for your own HACCP study. Because when your consumer will have a heating process, then perhaps it's not a big issue when there are some germs in your product that are killed after the heating step. But when your chilled product is eaten without a heating step, then you need to take into account that all the germs already have to be out. So this total picture has impact on your HACCP study. When you talk about quality standards, there are 4 big quality standards from the Global Food Safety Initiative: BSC, IFS, FSC 22000, ISO 22000, and SQF. When you would like to export or when you would like to deliver to big retail firms or bigger customers, you always will need one of these 4 quality standards. These are really the quality standards for food safety. And when you have a claim like organic, rainforest or whatever, that are claims that are additional to your quality standard. But these quality standards always have 2 big things: HACCP and prerequisite. So the thing that we are today training you is really also already that are also the right steps when you would like to be certified in the future, because you need to do this anyway. Yes.
And if I may interrupt you there, so for the 4 standards, because they are not mentioned anywhere in this presentation, I think later on we can add them in the chat function that we make over. Maybe Nele, you can do that. What are the 4 critical standards when it comes to quality assurance? Thank you.
Yeah, because when you go to our website, you click on standards, you already see those 4 mentioned, or 3. Because SQF is one that's really big in the US and in South America, but nobody is asking for it in the rest of the world. So SQF I'm always neglecting. But the same requirements count for IFS, BRC, and IFS, and FSC 22000. When you look to India, I think the continent, that there are around 2,000 companies certified for FSSC 22000, 2,000 for BRC, and 1,000 for IFS. So in total in India and Sri Lanka together, I think there are around 3,000 companies already certified. So that's interesting to know. But in the middle, the HACCP study, the HACCP, at the end, it's your food company that's doing the HACCP study. But when you do the HACCP study, you take into account the standards, your suppliers, your consumer, but also legislation, because the legislation will require how many additives you are allowed to put on your product, how many contaminants you can have in your product. And for this case also, life is quite simple. For all the hazards that are really there, the food safety hazards that are really there is legislation because it's dangerous. So the hazard study sometimes is also sometimes a little bit backward reasoning. What legislation is there? Okay, so then there's a hazard because that's the reason there's legislation. So you need to have that in your study. So it's all related to each other, and all these sources can be input for your study, because when you know a lot about legislation, when you know a lot about quality standards, also your study will be better. Anyway, we can go to the HACCP study, the HACCP beginning. But the reason I was telling this was just to give the bigger picture for HACCP. When you perform a HACCP study, there are two things. You have the HACCP study itself, and you have your prerequisite program. Now we start with HACCP, that's okay. But when you do it in the good way, you have to start with the prerequisite, and after that you do the HACCP. But in this case, it doesn't really matter the way we talk about it. So I will now start with HACCP. But with HACCP, you really have 5 steps: the identification of hazards, analyzing if there can be a risk, and then safeguarding that it will not be a risk, document the proof that you have safeguarded that risk, and verify if your thinking and your execution is okay to really have safe products. HACCP, the name, Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. We monitor our website, how many people visit our website every day, around 200 companies a day. One of the biggest things is always the CCP check. So still people are looking for the critical control points, and that's good to see, because that means that people are busy with it. Okay, next slide. So what kind of hazards do we have? We have physical hazards. Physical hazards usually involve foreign metal particles, glass, bones, stones, things that can cause problems in the body of people. Today, some people were looking for a procedure for glass on our website, so then we know they had a little glass issue. And then you know that. And also with metal particles, usually we always say bigger than 7 millimeter is okay, because then people cannot choke it or die because of metal part. But when you are delivering goods for children, then 2 or 3 millimeter has to be the scale, and not 7. So you always have to take these things into account. Physical hazards, and then we also have the next slide. Chemical hazards, you can have chemical issues in your products, and Bert was already addressing that. When you have pesticides, that's not nice that they are in your products, so they can really cause problems at the end for companies. And also some germs make chemical hazards, because you have germs that produce toxins, and these toxins will stay in your product although the germs are dead because of a heating step. So also these toxins, you have to take into account that they are not too much in your product. Next one. The biological hazards. So this is really that you introduce microorganisms to your product that can really cause a lot of problems. The E. coli, the salmonella, the listeria. I think everybody knows already a lot of germs that can cause issues. Most important thing is when there's water in place, then they start playing around and are happy. So as long as you have dry products, and they still can be in your product, but they will not grow further because there's no water what they really need. So and at the end, with your HACCP study, when you have a heating step, the microorganisms will be not there anymore. So that's a good thing. Last week there was a new movie on Netflix called Poisoning, and that's really of poison, and it's really about food safety in the United States. And a lot of people, I think around 6,000 people are dying every year in the United States because of food poisoning and what's happening and these kind of things. And E. coli is one of the germs that they always have issues with. And why? For example, lettuce can sometimes contain E. coli, not because of what they are doing on their field, but they are using then the water of the cows that are at another field. And so Bert Jan was giving the example of pesticides going into your product because of the neighbor that's also producing food. But sometimes even cows can cause E. coli problems with the lettuce that are in another field. And really people died because of that. So it's really an issue. So these kind of biological hazards we also need to take into account. And then perhaps there are more hazards, slide 5.5. Bacteria, I already spoke a little bit about it, but there are also bacteria that will not die. That will die because of a heating step, but they will produce toxins that are not, that will stay in your product. So Bacillus cereus, when there's more than 100,000 Bacillus cereus in 1 gram in your product, they will produce toxins, and still people can get very ill of that. And of course, for example, Clostridium botulinum, botulinum is very known. It can only happen once in 10 years, but still it's something you have to take into account in your HACCP study.
Okay, so for those that do not know this, can you explain what it means?
These are a lot. There's on our website we have a table with a lot of bacteria and pathogens that are just can cause problems in your products. And where
do they come from? Do you think?
Usually because God has decided that these bacteria exist, so they are just really just there in nature, so they're in your product. And when you talk about animal feed, when you talk about meat, for example, then it's because of the slaughter process. Because when you are in a slaughterhouse and you open the body of an animal, then also the germs can come out of the gastro. So that's not nice. But there are a lot of pathogens are everywhere. You have to take it into account. Even we Bert, 25% of the participants of this course have Staphylococcus aureus in their nose without knowing it. But that's one of the reasons you're not allowed to do this and then go further with your food. So there are also a lot of people that are making themselves ill. Yeah, because first you put touching your nose, and yes.
And this is why it's so important to wear masks if you produce food, right?
No, the most important thing is not to be ill, because the problem with masks is the same with COVID. People are doing it's getting wet. It's terrible. I prefer that people are not wearing a mask, but they're just doing their thing in a good way. And
not being ill.
No, not being ill. And when you are ill, you have to
a slight cough. It's not good, right?
No, but the problem is when you are producing food in an open area and you really need that money and you are ill, still you will go to work because you need that money. So it's I think as a company it's good to take it into account and perhaps to give them another job when they are having some issues and still want to work.
Okay.
But the most important thing is to take into account this overview of bacteria in your HACCP study, and you have to mention it. So when you get certified or where the government is checking your food safety system, they will ask what has been the input of your studies. And the tables that Nele was sharing, they are good to show to other people that are checking your system that you took all these kind of hazards into account if they can occur in your factory or not.
Okay. And it's good that at your website, as I'm showing here, there's lots of information on what is there and how to prevent, right?
Yes, and for example, for bacteria can grow when water and nutrients are present at a temperature between 20 and 40 degrees. I think it's always that temperature in Sri Lanka, so they can grow very good. but a lot of background information is on the website that you can take into account. For now, the most important thing is that you know that it's part of your HACCP study.
Okay.
So, I need some
Okay.
water. Oh, and some
Yeah.
coffee. But this is a nice, it's a very nice picture. This.
Yes. So if you take your time to grab some coffee and water, at this point I'd like to stop for a minute. This is the first step of our training today. Is about HACCP introduction and how to start with the HACCP study within your own company. Are there any questions so far? Are we okay? Are we not? Is Kees talking too fast, or is it okay for the participants? Can I have some feedback? Lakmini, start with you, for instance. How is it?
It's good, really good. Bert Jan.
Okay. And the other participant, is there any question at this point? Sharman, are you fine?
Yeah, I'm fine.
And within your company, you're doing coconut products, Sharman, huh? So have you already done this kind of HACCP analysis in your company?
Kind of, yes.
Kind of. What does that mean, Sharman? Kind of, like you are monitoring. Do you also document it?
Yes, we have we have documented some of them. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What will be nice, Bert, is that Nele shared the tables of the pathogens and of the physical hazards and the chemical hazards. It will be nice when you look at your own study, HACCP study, and identify if all these hazards have been taken into account.
Yes, that's the one in the chat function here, huh?
Yeah.
Hazard table, pathogenic bacteria.
Yeah, there's one, and we have two other tables for chemical and for physical hazards. But these are these are nice, informative tables of things that you take into account for your study.
Okay.
And there's someone raising their hand.
I cannot see because I'm in the presentation mode. I can't see that, unfortunately.
Hello.
Who has raised a hand?
Yes, Irendra. There he is.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yeah, your presentation is very informative, and thank you for that, first of all. So my name is Irendra, and I'm a Erasmus Mundus student. So my program is Erasmus Mundus Master Impact Entrepreneurship, hosted by University of Liège, Belgium. So in my project is about introducing coconut oil and other Sri Lankan products into Belgium. So I will be coming to Europe very soon. So I joined this event today because I have the interest about this subject, and I have a question related to these sustainability practices. So I want to ask whether there are any sustainability standards or certifications apart from food safety ones that you recommend for coconut oil entering the European market.
Okay.
So this is my question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Irendra. This one goes a bit beyond the scope of this training, but just for your information, with the GLX training, we are talking a lot when it comes to sustainability, as I told in the introduction, with Sri Lanka, with the conversion to organic, for instance, which I think is an interesting step when it comes to improving sustainability in Sri Lanka. What has happened with the plantation systems that are in place in Sri Lanka, of course, that is an increasing use of soil and water systems that has, I think it's fair to say, that has a detrimental impact on soils and water systems. There's a lot of erosion, and there's a lot of pesticide residues. Because of the huge water use in Sri Lanka, you've seen that the water levels are declining, meaning also that the concentrations of pesticides and fertilizers in that groundwater has also increased. You will see a lot of birth defects in Sri Lanka because of this. Now, maybe it's proven or not proven, but it means that when you talk about sustainability in Sri Lanka, you have to move back to regenerate the natural systems that were there. And well, as the name says, regenerative production is an interesting one because it has to take care of water and soil systems. We are discussing that with the companies, how to do that, because it means also engagement with the farmers and with the producers as a company, as a processing company.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Irene. Any other question for when it comes to food safety issues? If no further hands raised, then I suggest we continue to the next step, which is then the prerequisite program, meaning the moving from HACCP, the analysis, to making a program within the company, and that's what Kees will be explaining on next.
Yeah, because what you see, what I said, we started with HACCP study, but normally you start with the prerequisite program. So these are really the predefined steps to make a good HACCP plan for your company. So step one, firstly, the prerequisite program has to be completed. So that's an overview of 20 pages describing how your processing facility is. And when you do that in a good way, then already 80% of food safety is present because you have a good prerequisite program. This prerequisite program is almost the same program as being required for BSc, IFS, and FSC 22000. So also these quality standards all have a prerequisite program in place that you need to have. So what they say here, your entire food safety plan is based on the prerequisite program, followed by, I cannot read everything, followed by HACCP procedures. Because you still lack 20% for food safety that you need. And that extra 20% is identified with your HACCP study. So after the prerequisite program, you perform a HACCP study and you relate specific hazards to your raw materials and to your processes, so you really get, for example, a good cookie. So what do you need for a good cookie? From a raw material point of view, not too many chemical hazards has to be in it, or toxins have to be in it when you heat the product, because still the chemical hazards can be in, or the toxins can be in, but also the physical hazards like metal can still be in the cookie. So these kind of things have to be managed in the right way for your raw materials. And in your process steps, you need to take into account that really the cookies are well heated, because then all the germs are dead. And that you, for example, have metal detection, so you don't have that metal issue, potential metal issue in your cookie. When you don't have metal detection, you can also have metal checks, visual metal checks, and you also can have sieves, so you don't get the metal in the product. But normally, when you make a cookie and when you do it on a large scale, you will need a kind of metal detector to really take into account that these products are not contaminated with, in this case, with metal. What we do in the presentation is that we clarify also generic hazards in the prerequisite program. The prerequisite program is there so that you don't have hazards at the end in your product. But usually there's no relationship between the prerequisite program and the hazards that they are preventing. So we made this kind of overviews for you so that you have a lot of generic hazards already covered by a prerequisite program. It's good to do this, because then you don't have all these discussions about if you took all the hazards into account or not. So what has the prerequisite program all in? I think in total it's 5 slides or something like that. How many are that? Two only. That's nice. Yeah. In other presentations that are 6 slides, because then we have only one list per page. But what you need to take into account in your prerequisite program, you have to describe your establishment, you have to describe the control of food hazards, how you're dealing with time and temperature, how you're dealing with stock rotation, with packaging, with water. If the people are trained in your company, if you document all the information in the right way, if you have a kind of recall procedure in place for when things are not okay, if you are able to track and trace. American companies are always only talking about traceability. I don't know why, but when you have an American food safety training, it will only be about tracing and traceability. And there's nothing so simple as just to trace where things are, because that's just a way of good working, good writing down what you do, and you write down which kind of oil you're using, and when you're using it, it is in your product. In your product, you sell, you send to a consumer. I don't see the reason why this has to be so difficult, but in American quality systems, really traceability is the #1, and all the rest is less important, or they do not focus on that. But traceability is, of course, an issue. And for example, when you have a claim on your product, like organic, then you really need to have the right mass balances in place. And when there's something wrong with your mass balance, you can forget your certification, and then your organic product is not organic anymore. And the problem with organic is that it's not only you that can cause the problem, but also the one who is receiving it. So the problem is when you send organic products to Europe, then you really have the traces system in which all the information is. But you have the first receiver, they really need to write down all the information in the system. The first person who is getting your product. Because when he or she is not doing that, then your product is not organic anymore. So you did your best to really produce a nice organic product, but then because of your consumer, because of your customer, or because of the transport company forgetting something, your product is not organic anymore. So it's bigger than only your own company then. But anyway, these kind of things have all to be described in your prerequisite program. When we go to the next page, I think there are even more things. Yeah? You also have to write down how you are dealing with maintenance, how you do pest control, how you do waste management, personal hygiene, very important, that people are doing the right things, are wearing the right clothes, what to do with illness, how to wash your hands, how to deal with visitors, that not people are just allowed to enter your company without writing down their name and saying that they are not ill. Labeling, very important, that all the coding is in place with also the allergen information, for example, but also training of your people, that people are really trained in food safety and know what they do. We now go very fast there. We just see 2 slides and we talk a little bit about it, but these are really 20 pages that you really have to describe how you do it. I think at the end we will share a link where all this information can be downloaded. So we have also this document can be completely downloaded, so you can fill it in for yourself. So the first 3 steps. This is an example. Furnishing, design, and facilities. 2.1.2 equipment. So the requirement from the prerequisite is the equipment shall be arranged in such a way that it can be used and cleaned well, functions in accordance with the intended use, and it enables good hygienic application, including monitoring. And then you say where you have described it, and you give an argumentation that your company has really organized it in the right way. And what you can also add is documents or links to documents so people can see it. But the nice thing of I really like prerequisites very much, because it really already tells you what to do. And when you just do it, you already have 80% of your food safety system ready. Next slide, please. Yeah, so what you see is the prerequisite program is dealing with a lot of hazards that are just, how can you say it, that are covered with the prerequisite program. But what we always see when we are in all this, or people are checking our systems, people really would like to know what kind of dangers, what kind of hazards are covered with the prerequisite program. So we made a nice table saying, for example, a danger is cross-contamination with pathogens towards products with a risk of disease, and you check it by proper personal hygiene prevents cross-contamination. So you really check that everybody complies with the agreements to work in a hygienic way. And what do you do when people are not doing it? You give them a little punishment and tell them, or you retrain them that they really know that they have to wear this hygienic clothes, for example, and that they really have to wash their hands. Another issue. Pest droppings in food. Pests can be carriers of pathogens with a chance of disease. So pest needs to be out of your factory. So you check it with good pest control and entrance checks when you receive goods, that no rats jump into your factory. And it's very good also to have instructions in place that people did checks on pest, and that you have a good contract with a service provider for pest control. It sounds very easy, but you have really to do this all, and also you have to check that it still happens. Because a lot of times when you outsource services like pest control, you agree 10 days a year, and they only come 8, and then you have they are not meeting your requirements.
Case, if I may ask, because you're saying give little punishments, but because usually what you see companies, sometimes companies are very strict and sometimes companies are not so strict, and they sort of close eyes to certain irregularities. How strict should you be? And
I
also
think that
with your punishments.
I think the most important thing is 2 months ago I was on a World Food Safety Day conference with another company called Highfield. They train around, I think, 2 million people a year also on food safety. And the nice thing was that this guy was the owner of the company, already doing it for 40 years. And one thing he said, Richard is his name, was for me an eye-opener. You always need to have a food safety compliance officer in the production. So somebody has to be responsible for food safety, but also has to be there. And it really starts with that. It starts with one person in your factory or in your production area that's responsible for food safety, knows about it, and also trains the people that are doing food safety activities. And of course, he or she will see things that are not going well, and then you need good management to talk about it, to write it down as an on the action list that things were not okay. And when people are not doing it for 5 times, for example, so when it's always the same person not meeting the food safety requirements, it's a reason to fire this person or to give him or her another job or whatever. But you need all the simple management tools that you also need for other activities. People have to do the job and have to listen. Yeah, I cannot make a difference. Yeah, when people are not listening, you need other people. Yeah. So it's quite easy.
All right. So that's a good point to stop here, and I ask to what extent the companies that are present here in the training have implemented this and how they deal with punishments or not punishments. Maybe some of the participants can, let me see. Irendra, that was previous, your question, or you still have a question? And I see that Dimitri has responded as well with a smile. Dimitri, maybe you can explain how you deal with this? Dimitri?
Hi, it's Domingo actually here from Portugal.
Hi, Domingo. Hi, how are you?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. How are you?
Okay, good that you could make it in the end. I was not sure if you were there.
No, I had some trouble with the Zoom, and then I tried on a different device, and now it's working.
Okay. Can you explain, because we've been talking about your company already, so can you explain a bit how you have implemented food safety issues?
Yes, so I think my QAs are in the conversation as well. So basically, Bert Jan, since we are producing kids biscuits, we are very concerned about our safety and our quality. So first
Yeah,
of
we
anything,
discussed
we
it.
have
I'm not sure if you were in the introductions. We discussed a bit about it as an example, that you have different ingredients and coming together in one product, and then we were
correct.
quite keen to learn how you manage all that.
Correct. So as per the discussion we had personally as well, I mentioned, right, some problem we faced with the supplier. So that's a certified supplier. So that's actually a question I was going to ask at the end of the discussion as well. So
you can ask now,
so basically,
if you like. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we are doing is, now we have taken the control to our hand from the raw material. So we are sieving literally everything. We are double checking the quality of literally everything, all the raw materials that come in. So we implemented that procedure now. I mean, either flour or cereal is done in the house, but all the others, like even sugar, when we pound it, we again sieve it. We literally sieve all the materials, and then we quality test them as well. And when it comes to this point, quality is something that me and Andrea and our quality team is thoroughly believing in. So we have communicated it to the staff as well, right? So what we have told them is, think of this product as a product that you give to your own kid.
Correct. And there's two
Right.
things,
So,
like Kay said, having somebody on the work floor, because you're now moving from, let's say, house-based production to bigger production. It's important to have a person in place on the work floor. Second point I have for you is that, as Kay explained in the beginnings, is you don't have any animal ingredients in your products, right? Because that's also one of the crucial elements when it comes to food safety issues, and particularly in the European.
no, we do have dairy. I don't know whether that's what you mean by animal.
Yes.
Yes, but it's not the problem, because but when you would like to export your cookies in the future to Europe, then your dairy has to come out of a European approved dairy production facilities.
I'm sorry, mate. So the dairy is used in the local product, but then what we are developing for the European market, it's lactose free. It's dairy free.
Okay.
So
that's good. They don't have the issues.
Had a chat with, all right. Yes.
Yeah.
So we had a chat. I think I had a chat with Shamin as well, right? About using. We are using coconut milk.
Yeah, we
as
discussed
a
about
binder.
that.
So we have removed the dairy from the equation in the export product, mate.
Okay.
And of course, yes. So how we manage is, so there are two QAs on the floor, checking and double checking literally everything. But what we thought is, Bert Jan, rather communicate the message to the employees, right? And tell them the strength of the quality that is required from them. I mean, we can always do the principle like that as well, right? You go behind people with a chain and with a cane, and you guide them through. Yes, correct. But then what we thought is, rather communicate it to the employees, and then develop within themselves that, okay, this is something that a kid is going to have at the end of the day, a baby or an infant. So we do the official control, and also we have communicated it to the employees as well. Yes.
And this is what I see in companies that are really successful, that all the workers are very proud of what they produce, and they know indeed, as you say, exactly, for instance, if it's eaten by kids, how important it is, because they have kids themselves. And as Kay's explained, every new worker needs to be also trained in this respect. And you have people on the floor who are responsible to monitor who's trained, not trained, or need more training. It's quite crucial. And then also documenting this, as Kay's showed with the prerequisite program, if this is also strictly followed by all the workers.
Correct. Because the documentation process is very important as well. Correct. I agree. Yes. And I think we do. I think my QA can answer that question more than me. She's covered in piles and piles and piles of documents, but all the time.
Yes.
To be honest.
Yes.
So it's this check sheet and that check sheet, and yeah, it's too much to fathom for me. So, but she's handling it.
So, Kees, can you explain on that? Because indeed, there's loads of documents that you need to produce. How do you manage this? You have a particular system for this online, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it starts with
online.
thinking. It starts with thinking and then doing. So first you have to think about what are you going to register, what do you need to register, and then you write it down. And usually when you have made good forms in your factory to write down the right things, it doesn't have to be so many forms. So usually around 5 or 6 registration forms already need to be enough. And when you have 30 of them, you can really organize it in a different way. But it's another discussion. But it's good to take into account what do you write down and why, and can it perhaps be in another way. One of the most important checks I always advise customers to do is to start with the daily check. So before you start producing, you have your check that everything is okay, that everything is clean, that all the hygienic procedures are in place, that the equipment is okay. Because when something goes wrong during the day, then you can always show that the day before it was okay. And when you do not write this down, then your recall will be bigger because you don't have that information for a month. So always
Sorry,
start.
you can trace it like this.
Yeah, always start with a daily check with photos or whatever to do with it. That things are okay. That is one of the things I can
All right.
advise.
All right. So what I will do is, mate. So after the discussion, I will have a chat with our team as well. They are also online, and then probably we can see where we can scale it down, and then see what we are not doing. Actually, I saw the prerequisites that you have mentioned. So like that's something we can start on with.
Okay.
Yeah. What you can do is the prerequisite program. You can just write down what you already do, and then you already have a complete handbook because it just comes. It just comes together. Now, what Bert is
All
also
right.
addressing. What we offer is also a complete mobile solution even on your telephone. That your complete quality handbook is on your phone together with checks that you can do. But the most important thing,
lovely.
yeah. But the most important thing is that you do it, and then it doesn't matter if it's on your phone or on paper. But the nice thing when we do things digitally, you are remembered when things are not going well. And also you make your own action list, because when things are not okay, it all enters an action list, things for improvement, and these kind of things you need in your management system. It's about your handbook, it's about executing it, it's about dealing with the deviations, and also improving your handbook. Because when the same mistakes are happening every time, then perhaps something is not okay in your system.
Correct. You can analyze this as well. Yes, correct.
All
yes,
right.
and you can see the gaps. Yes.
But if you don't mind, I use 1 minute to get a coffee.
Yes. Get some.
Bert Jan,
some.
can I raise a small question, Bert Jan?
Yes, for sure. Go ahead. And Kees, get your coffee.
I'm having mine actually on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's actually on metal detection. I heard him mentioning on metal detection.
Yes, correct.
Yes. So if you are not using a metal detector per se, do we have any other mechanism to check this thing?
I'm afraid not. I mean, some companies, of course, a metal detector, and some people use magnets. But some
magnets, okay.
Some in their production system, but some metals, of course, cannot be also taken out by magnets. So a detector is quite crucial. The other means is, of course, labor intensive. It means that you have to have very good check mechanisms with the people that are on the production line. But then again, if the particles are so small, it's difficult to detect.
Yes. So this is something we want to implement in our export line anyway, because currently we do a physical check, like visual check. We have the color codes and we have all of that, and we have trained people to do that. So that's how we currently do it. and we segregate into 3 grades and so on and so forth. And but then yeah, so the option is to go with a metal detector, right?
Yeah, I do realize it's a bit expensive, but if you scale operations, it's quite crucial, huh? Because you could say in the beginning, if it's smaller, you can use a lot of manual labor to detect things. But once you grow and production processes go faster, you definitely need it.
Correct. So yeah, probably we have already started looking into it. So to procurement one. So maybe we'll go ahead with that if there's no other choice. Yes.
Yes. Keza was just explaining that doing without a metal detector, if your production starts increasing, is quite difficult, huh? Because it's quite important to have this processes in check.
Yeah, for now, when you're using, it's all about risk analysis. So when you're using now the sieves, and you know for sure that everything was okay before you make the product, we can sell that to the auditor. That will be enough for now. But the only metal risk you still can have then is because of your own equipment. So you really have to check your own equipment all the time that things are okay.
But the thing is, we are going to get down the cookie cutting machine, so then I think things will get a little bit complicated on the side of the metal. So that's what I was looking at. Like currently, we are cutting it by hand, right?
Yeah, so and then you see it. Then you see when the blade is not going well. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's proceed, and then we go to the next part of the training, which is on GMP. And Kees will be explaining how HACCP and GMP are related as well.
Yeah, the good thing is it's all the same. So sometimes people were asking me, Kees, can you do GMP training? And I told them, what do you want? and then you look to what it is, and then you say, oh, that's something I already do for 30 years. It's only another name for it. Nice to see. But the thing is, you have the prerequisite program, and when you execute what you describe in your prerequisite program, then suddenly you have good manufacturing practices. So it's the chicken and the egg. The prerequisite program is asking you questions, and when you do it, it's a practice. So all these things that are now here as an example are practices that you do because of your prerequisite program. All these procedures are also available online on QAssurance.com/info/GMP. So we all put them all together for you. So the only thing you have to do is get it, put your name on it, and then you have the procedures in place. So that's easy. But it's just I will now just share the summary of it, so we have a discussion about what you at least need to do. But all the complete procedures are already sorry, on the website, and we share them with you. And when you use these procedures and also do it, what is written down, then you're already having a very good quality system in place. That also meets the requirements of BRC, IFS, and FSSC 22000. Yeah, the first procedure. This was our COVID procedure. It's now not really relevant anymore, but the last 2 years it was. And what every company needed to have in Europe was a company protocol for COVID. But the nice thing is when you read it, it can also be a protocol for when you are ill. So it's still now in this presentation for when we have a new variant. But in general, these are just this can also just be a visitor protocol, how you work together, or when you accept visitors or not. But the most important thing is when you are ill, you stay at home, or you get another job when you can contaminate food or your colleagues. Because it's also nice when people are ill and they make everybody ill. Then it's also there's no food there's no production anymore when everybody is ill. And also very simple.
Even in my company case, I don't have a production company, but if people are ill, they have to be aware that it can affect other people and make other people ill as well. So this is very much whether you call it corona or let's say health and hygiene. It's basic rules that people have to abide with in order to keep the company going, isn't it?
Yeah, the other problem what you see now, because after COVID, still in Europe, a lot of business is now going online. Because you can sit at home and you can do your video chats. So I also travel not too much anymore. But the thing is, because you travel less, you get ill more. Because your immune system is not dealing anymore with other people. Because you are just in your safe bubble at home all the time. I have 3 kids, so I don't have a safe bubble, but I'm very immune because of them, so that's good. They bring everything home all the time. Other thing that you really need to have in your company is a procedure how to deal with complaints. I always see a complaint as a way to improve your company, to learn from it, and also to get a better relationship. It's the same at home. When your wife or husband is complaining, learn from it, and the relationship will be better. Or you're divorced. But the most important thing is better just love. Last time I did this training in Saudi Arabia, they told me, yes, Kees, but we can marry 4 times, so we don't have this problem at home. We don't have to divorce.
I think I have to talk to your wife, Kees.
Anyway, we go back to complaints. Most important is with complaints is that you have to deal with it in a professional way when it's from a customer. So in 5 working days, give an answer. But also when you have complaints going to your supplier, write them down and also use that in your management review at the end of the year. So when you have every time, when you see, for example, that your supplier is not doing a good job 2 times a month, communicate it, and start talking with him or her about what's happening. Yeah, because it doesn't really work when there are too many complaints, when things are not going well. But anyway, you need a procedure for it, and that procedure is we are sharing it on our website, and you can just use it, and please do it, because then you have a good management system in place. Okay, next slide, please. Documentation is also required from out of the prerequisite program. The prerequisite program is asking for a way to document. There are 2 things. You have registration and documentation. The registration is that you write things down in a certain way, but then you have a paper full of information that you have to document. And so document it in such a way that people can access it again, and also document in such a way when it is digital that you know where information is. And also when somebody is on holiday or ill or whatever, know where the information is, so you can also show the authorities where the HACCP study is, or where the calibration reports are, or other info, where the lab results are. You need to be aware with everybody where the information is, and that you can that you have to describe in your in your handbook. In our IMA system that we also sell, we have made 32 documents, the folders where you can place documents in. So it's about raw material information, packaging, maintenance, storage. It's just a predefined way of storing information, but it's also, because of that, a kind of way of working. And when everybody is doing it in the right way, then you know that all the information about maintenance is in the folder maintenance. So it just improves the way you work. It makes your company more, how can you say it, professional. And you also have, in this case, a way to, people can also not be there, and still the system goes further. What also is very important is specifications. All your raw materials that you're using, you need to have up-to-date specification of it, with ingredients declarations, with nutritional values and allergens. And you really need to have all this information there, so you can calculate for your own labeling. All the information is there. And what you have to take into account is that there are also technical how do you say it? Technical raw materials that don't have to be on the labeling, but still you would like to know if your supplier is using this kind of technical raw materials. We call them hulpstoffen, the technical adding stuffs that you just use, because sometimes these these additives can have allergens or can have, for example, not organic components or whatever, and then you cannot claim everything anymore. 80% of the recalls in Europe are on allergens, so the allergens really have to be okay. Bert Jan?
Yeah, and it means that if you have a final product like a biscuit, it means that all the ingredients need separate specifications, and even for the final product, you need also specifications, right?
Yes, and usually in Europe we always have, we call it quid. It starts with the highest quantity and ends with the last 2%. So then you know what's all in the product. But you need to meet legislation. So to really take into account labeling legislation in Sri Lanka, that you meet their requirements. But also where you would like to do export, just check it. It's not so difficult. When you know the rules, you can just meet them and your product is okay. But when you are making a mistake, you completely have, how can you say it, a not okay container. so things can really go. When specifications are not okay, you can usually stop with your business. So specifications are really important. These are contracts. These are not just specifications. Every specification is a contract that you have to have. It's also important to have specifications with your service providers. Because, for example, when you do a lab test, you would like to have an ISO 125 accredited lab. So that has to be in your specification of the lab. So in your requirements. So when they are not having this accreditation for certain tests, they have to mention it. But all these things, just document it, and then you have it all together. Another thing, because I was talking about labs, and it has nothing to do with documentation, but it's good to take into account that even though Europe, for example, is asking for some tests, not only the test has to be accredited, but also the sampling method. There are a lot of sampling methods in India that are not allowed in Europe, but the European companies do not know it. So we don't talk about it too much. But a lot of rice testing, for example, is not meeting EU legislation because they are not doing the sampling procedure in the way the EU is prescribing. But nobody knows it, so nobody talks about it. So let's not record everything today. But it's good to take it into account and to know it. It's not a problem that that you know it and you still do it and you just hope it goes well. But then you are there is a decision of you and not something you do not know. Okay, next one, please. Documentation, education, very important. Train everybody in company. Food safety is so important. Everybody needs to have at least the basic training before they start working for you. So the presentation that we are sharing on the internet, please just download it, print it out, and let people read it and sign it off that they saw it. And then you have everything on paper that people know everything. You still have to check if they really know it, but still, the first step you have made because you have trained your people before they start. When you have now people working for you in your factory without a training in food safety, you can better stop following this course, go directly to them and talk about the training that we have on our website. You can also wait for 3 hours, but please do it already tomorrow because the biggest problem in companies are people that are not trained in food safety. That really does not work. We also offer ourselves bigger courses, also complete online food safety compliance courses. In October, we will do another 5-day course of 2 hours a day. And they also get a lot of information as a quality department that you can use in your company. So perhaps, Bert Jan, you can share the information, or we can do it in Sri Lanka. I would like to travel anyway. We can also do it locally. Another nice thing, it has nothing to do with education.
I have to discuss that with the GLX team. But for sure, also, just to reiterate, the online system also is interesting. But also to realize a lot of the information is quite technical. So for employees to understand technical issues is also requiring some translation. So that's why on-the-spot training often is very important. So you can also deal with local examples of how things work. Yeah, that's quite important.
But we, for example, have because we have these control rounds, things you have to check. So once a month you check if the knowledge of personnel is okay. You check if people are meeting the company rules, if people are meeting the hygienic rules, if the HACCP study is up to date. Because the HACCP study is not a one-off. Every month you have to ask yourself, hey, did I change something? Do I need to change my study? So that's the reason at the end we will talk about the HACCP team. HACCP is a continuously activity you do every month, because otherwise your system goes like this. And so when we talk about the employee health and safety, things have to be okay, organized in your company, and it has to be also on paper that it was okay, because then you can prove it. For the company rules and hygienic rules, you also have these kind of signs you can put on on the wall in your factory with all the rules that you need for food safety. It's not in this presentation, but I think, Neil, it will be nice to share that link to the signs. Because we have it in English, we have it in German, we have it in French, Arabic, but we can also use local languages. So when you have another language you would like to have added, then you can really make these hygienic rules in the local language on the wall in the factory. Is good to have. For example, in Rwanda, we have it all in Swahili, and then suddenly the half of them didn't speak Swahili. So that was great. So still
You have
nobody
it,
could read.
yeah, you have it in Sinhalese.
Sinhalese. No, yeah, but when somebody's helping me with translation, we can make it. But it's nice. There are only 6 or 7 signs. But when you print these out and put them on the wall, also when people are visiting your factory, they will think, "Hey, this is a professional company." So it's also a good marketing tool. Okay, next one, please. Cleaning. Depends what you make and how you make it. When you make cookies, perhaps a lot of things you will not clean with a complete full chemical way, but perhaps at only the end of the packaging line or whatever. But it's good to have cleaning procedures in place and really have a kind of system for it in an Excel, saying this area. This person is responsible for the cleaning. These items need to be cleaned once a day, once a week. This is the method of cleaning, but also the method of dismantling the machine or whatever, that people know what they have to clean. Once we had a chicken satay producer in Holland, and he was saying, "Yes, I really like my chicken satay machine because it really makes nice satay, these kind of Indonesian things. But the machine smells a little bit." So the problem was they could not clean the machine. That sounds like a so it's very important already before you start working with machines. Can you clean them or not? It's a validation step you need to do. But also talk about the cleaning solutions, the concentrations, and check if the right concentrations are really in place. And use the right cleaning materials. So really have this kind of cleaning program for your factory. Is everybody having that at the moment?
Yes, we do.
Bert Jan, do you have a cleaning program for your house?
In my office, yes. In my house, not. but you see, that's the thing, and I think it's an important point. Like between my wife and myself, it's quite clear how we organize our cleaning.
I also have a feeling.
But in the office, but in the
That's
office,
a good say, yes.
But in the office, it's quite different. That especially you have new people coming in. Some people are abiding by the rules, others are not, and the others are saying, he's cleaning well or she's cleaning well, and the other ones are not. And you get all sorts of things. It needs to be a harmonized system, I guess, and that everybody sees the same things happening and knowing what to do. Maybe also for Domingo, I mean, what the case was saying about concentrations of cleaning materials, that is so crucial that if you use the wrong concentration, it can also affect foods.
Yes.
How do you monitor that?
I reckon our cleaning material, Bert Jan, is based on the halal. certification and ISO. So we are matching those two concentrations. I'm not exactly sure what are the percentages, volume to volume, but then that's what we are using.
And it means that even for the halal, it means that even for the ingredients in the cleaning materials, you have to check, right?
Yes. So that's we are maintaining. So it's based on halal and ISO. I reckon I know for sure that it's for halal and ISO as well. So that percentages we are maintaining, and also we have a 20 minutes cleaning schedule in the morning and 20 minutes cleaning schedule in the evening,
Yes,
and
but
in the
yeah,
middle as well.
but the most important thing for halal is that your production line is completely cleaned before you start with halal production. So these kind of things you have to validate, write down that you did the cleaning, and check, for example, with ATP if there are still some proteins left or not.
Correct. And we have to be concerned the concentration of the alcohol in the cleaning substance and the alcohol in the table cleaning substance. That all is controlled, and we are maintaining that.
Yeah, but the advice for cleaning in general is to use something based on chlorine, and not on quatermonium stuff, because chlor is not detectable, and quatermonium always stays in your cookie. So when you would always when you don't want to have issues at all, always don't use quat, because they can detect that, but chlorine they cannot detect. And what also happens, and what happened with a cookie factory in Holland, they were using egg powder in their cookies, but one of the production process steps for egg powder is using a lot of quat. So there was this government thought there was there was a lot of cleaning material in the cookie, but it was not. It was just a technical additive of the egg powder producing. But for that reason, it's so important to know what's all happening at your supplier, because at the end you will get the questions to be that you have to answer.
Correct.
The cleaning is important also from a professional point of view, and there are also professional companies that can help you, like Diversity, Ecolab, or these kind of teams. Okay, next slide, please. Entry check. We already spoke about it. You already said all our suppliers have to see if the products, but still we do it ourselves also. So then we know that it's for certain. These entry check them, these 16 steps are usually for us on a sign. I think an entry check is so important that you really have to put it on the wall, that everybody knows, hey, there's a new product. What do I have to do? Point 1, only receive deliveries from approved suppliers. So not a supplier. So when there's coming a supplier whose name is not known, that people are not just accepting that good. It has really happened to one of our customers. The lorry driver made a mistake. He brought the raw materials to the wrong producer. So he thought he had to go to company A, but he went to company B, and he gave them all the raw materials. And still, after that, almost they started to use it, because they saw, hey, great raw materials, I get them. But these raw materials were almost the same as the other raw materials, but these were containing some allergens. So that was another issue. But it's very important to have a system in place that is idiot-proof, that they are not coming, so that suppliers cannot deliver without being approved, but also they always have to deliver the same quantity. So when when you have a product specification of 20 kilos, then do not accept 30 kilo bags, because usually other amounts have other specifications, have other recipes. The Heinz ketchup, for example, the 5-liter version is different than this version we are using at home. So once I was very good. I had a nice discussion with Heinz. How can a global company use an E number A385 that's not allowed in Europe anymore? And then they were very silent. It was fun. Anyway, they only receive products signed terms of delivery, and then also when the driver may only unload when the transport is there. the driver also have to wash their hands and wear nice clothes and not smoking, not being dirty. It has to be a professional way, because the driver is also getting into your company, for example, and they have to meet the external rules. I call it the IMIS rules, but you can make your own rules. And these are very simple rules: not wearing jewelry, having personal hygiene in place, and also only drive away when the door is closed again. Otherwise, you get all these how do you say it? Uitlaatgassen. Help me, Bert. Car emissions.
The fumes,
Yeah,
the fumes from the
course.
cars.
Of course, in the future, everything will be electric. but until then, we have these fuel issues. But also when you have to check the delivery, if the order quantity is okay, if the temperature is okay, if the transport conditions were okay. We was talking about pest control. Check the pest in the transport, if it's okay, if there is no glass that's contaminating the product. Check the packaging, the labeling, if things are okay. And also, do not accept a best before date of 3 days when you still are using that product for the next 5 months. So just check it and also write it down in your entry check form. This is, I think, almost the most important check in your company. Because this is a control about what's coming into your company. What's happening in your factory, you have in control because it's your factory. What's happening outside of your factory, you don't have in control. So you really need to do this in the right way and to make it happening. Okay, but the whole procedure is also on our website, and we will share it on the qassurance.com/info/GMP. You can just have it all. Allergy management. Of course, we are now in Asia, also Europe, America, Japan. Every country, every continent has its own allergens, but in general, it's good to know them and also to manage the allergens in the right way. Because normally allergens are on the packaging, or when they are not on the packaging and they are still in the product, you have a recall. So that's not okay. So it's important to avoid cross-contamination of allergens or the unintended presence of allergens. And so the principles that you're using, for example, for halal, are almost the same principles you can use for allergy management, because it's very important that you have a cleaning step. When you first make a cookie with sesame, and after that without sesame, you can better change the order of production, because sesame is an allergen. So start with the most allergen-free product and end with the most allergy containing product, so you don't have too many cleaning steps. But it's a way of training also of the people that they take that into account. So when are things happening with allergens that you don't like, it's present in a raw material, but it was not mentioned in the specification. That's not nice, but it happens a lot. Sorry, it's also in it. Once there was a milk in an aroma for a lot of potato chips that were sold worldwide. So that was a little bit of stress. And the problem in that case is that you have these amounts that you that are tolerated or not. And usually there's an, how can I say it? Some allergens are still can be present in your product without causing damage to people that have an allergen issue, but still it's legislation that what has to be in your product has to be on the label. So sometimes, for example, there's not milk on the labeling in Europe, but still the milk is present, and then still our food safety authority is saying, sorry, it's an ingredient, it's not on the list, it's a recall. So even when it's not causing an allergen reaction, still you have this recall because it has to be on the label. But when do also things go wrong? Usually with the recipes, when they're not following the right recipe. So let people always tick the box that they do the right recipe. And I think 50% of all the recalls in Europe are because of the wrong label. Then everything went okay. So your cookie is the best cookie in the world. Everybody made that cookie like it has to be, and then they put on the wrong label. And then still you have a recall because the label is not okay. It's unbelievable. But these things are happening a lot of times in Europe. So
I tell
difficult.
you, I was recently buying some ingredients for my mueslis, which contain seeds and other things, and it was just a wrong label. And I told one of the, let's say, guys that were sort of handling the inventory, and they just couldn't handle it. It was already at a level that they can't deal with it. So it's quite crucial that something went wrong in the quality checks internally, that between the product and the label, something went wrong.
Yeah, but also big companies like Mars with the M&Ms. Then they have M&Ms without peanut, but then still there's peanut in it. That's not okay. It's one of the that's also the biggest problem with allergens you have with peanuts, because of peanuts people can have this how can you say it? I forgot the name, but they can get a reaction and then it's over with people. So peanuts are not so okay. Anaphylactic, yeah, and anaphylactical shock we call it. I know, yeah. I myself have a soy allergy. So usually I now also already look like I have an allergy attack, but I can really look worse when I really have had one. So once in my office, somebody had instead of milk, they bought soy milk, but it was the same color with strawberries in it. So I was drinking the whole bottle, and then it felt a little bit bad in my stomach. Okay, perhaps there's soy in it. So how can it be? It's milk. No, we also bought soy milk. Okay, thank you very much.
And Domingo is saying that in Sri Lanka, spitting of chewed betel leaf is an issue, because indeed people spit a lot.
That's the worst thing the drivers do here. Like, they chew the betel leaf and then they spit it all over the place, man.
All over the place. So then we need entrance rules saying do not spit.
Yeah, we have told some guys, like, okay, please don't do this. If you want to, please go to the road, do your business, and then come back.
Yes. You have to be quite strict on these things.
Yes.
I want to go back to the allergens, because I was not ready with the allergens yet.
Okay. Good.
So even soy, do we have to mention it on the packets? Saying we will look into the regulations. We haven't yet, but then I'm just starting up front, like, the soy allergen also, should we mention it on the packet?
Yeah. It depends where you sell it. When it's not in Indian or Sri Lanka legislations, for the EU you really have. We have a list of 14 allergens. We also have a product label checklist on our website, and there are all these questions in.
Brilliant.
So it's a 7 pages checklist, but when you check your label on it, then you are in comply or you are not in comply. But it will be great when you put soy on your cookie for me. So
you can't have one variant. So the cereal biscuit has a bit of soy in it. So yes,
a little bit is always okay. But usually, a little bit I can handle, but not too much.
Yeah, but it needs to be listed. That's the important part.
Yeah, because once I was
definitely do.
But we are in a factory with 50 other companies, and we have also a barbecue restaurant, BBQ restaurant here, and they were having these spare ribs, but they were also they put soy in it. But I asked them, is soy in it? And they said no. So I ate 1 kilo of this meat, but I didn't get any reaction. And a week later they said, yes, Kees, but there's soy in it. Oh, okay. Oh, did you change your recipe? Because last week there was no soy in it. No, it has always been in. So sometimes when you have an allergy, you also have to check if it goes well or not. So,
correct,
but with peanuts, you can better not check. Another thing is when you are using, for example, how do you say it? Food oil or a food grade oil in your factory, that can also contain peanuts. So it's good to know if where peanuts are in. And also when you store your allergens, they have to be stored in such a way that they cannot contaminate other products without. Okay, but we have also a procedure for this. You can also download it from our website. Okay, next one.
Brilliant.
Okay. Foreign materials. Most important is for foreign materials we have also a procedure and just dealing with it and describing how you are getting foreign materials out of your product. So it's about good and entrance checks. It is also about having, for example, the glass in your factory protected. So when the glass breaks, it doesn't contaminate your product. A lot of things you can also do with checks. When you have a daily check on foreign material and you write down our equipment was okay, and then you already have done the checks that you need for Food Safety Authority. It's all about building evidence. It's more important to write it down than to really do it, but you have to write it down. That's the step one. Another thing is, and it also sounds for digital systems, you cannot change at the end. Also when you store things in your quality system, the Food Safety Authority or a customer can ask you, let's go back to the 8th of March 2022. How will you then organize on that day? So then things have to be okay, and you have to have all the documentation in place that during that day everything was okay. And that's one of the reasons I always advise to automate these kind of things, to have it digitalized, because then you can automate also these kind of checks if you are lacking things. Otherwise, you never know. Okay, glass and hard plastic, also very important. It's a physical danger, physical hazard. So the measures to prevent glass breakage are covering the lights, covering the windows, keep as much as of glass and hard plastic out of the production area as possible. And in our case, you can check it by telephone to show that everything was okay. But it's about the procedure. The procedure also contains what you do when things go wrong. So when you have glass breakage, you have to write down that you get away of it, that you block your products, and that so you also need quarantine procedures in place before products are okay, approved again. So it's really a nice procedure that you can also just download. Okay, next one.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I was just checking. Because it says hard plastic. What about soft plastics? Because what I see is still a lot.
But there's no soft plastic in this presentation, only hard.
Okay, and why is that? But no, but what I see a lot with
hard plastic can break. Soft plastic not.
Sure, but what I see a lot with farmers still using a lot of plastic ending up, because we talked about metal detectors before, and little pieces of plastics, because one of the bigger concerns what you see nowadays among consumers is that also with babies, that they already start having plastic particles in their blood system. And it's a big issue in the European market at the moment.
Correct.
So what I'm
Correct.
very adamant about is even already at the farm level to stop putting plastics in the soil and in the ground and in the products. Is there any prevention mechanism how you deal with that in your system case?
No, what you say, I think those microplastics can go out of the soil into the plants already. But this is really a physical hazard that you choke it and that you cannot breathe anymore. So this is not about getting plastic into your system. But for example, the blue bags, the people are using a lot, blue plastic sheets that people are using a lot in production. We find these are recalls. When they are in the end product, you have to call back your product because plastic is in your product. Another thing is that, but it's also about microplastics. I saw last week, I saw a little nice thing on LinkedIn. What is happening in your microwave? When you just boil water in plastic in a microwave, then suddenly there are 1 million particles of plastic in that water. Also very interesting.
Yeah, true.
But,
It's a high concern. Yeah.
Okay, at my age, it doesn't matter anymore. I die anyway quite soon. But it will be nice if we can prevent it for our children.
All right.
Okay, labeling and
Thank you.
packaging. Really a very important check, and really take into account that this is happening well, and that people also write it down. At the start of the packaging, are people using the right labeling? During the packing, are people not changing the labels? When bed sheets or packaging materials are changing, are they putting the right packaging material still on it? And at the end of every production, also check it. Then you have had 4 checks if the packaging is okay. And still, 80% of the recalls is because of wrong packaging. It's great. Because people use this really as a tick the box and not really doing it. What you really need on this kind of checks is, we call it the 4 eyes principle. Let somebody else also check and do it together. Don't look for a person with 4 eyes, but have 2 people. Then okay, yeah. And also when you print information on the packaging, date coding, batch coding, quantity, pricing, barcodes, country of origin, all these things have to be printed right. Because when they print down the wrong date, when they make 2022 out of it instead of 2023, they also have a recall. So it's really, this really has to go well. And we have a procedure for that, but please implement this in your company when you are making a lot of products, because then you don't have the issue. Next slide. Maintenance, very important, not only to maintain when things are breaking down, but also do prevention. So make a kind of maintenance program in place. Also write down who's maintaining what, which external parties that you are using. And when you have new machines, always start with a validation if the machine is okay for production, if it's fit for its purpose, if you can clean it, if there are hard plastic or glass parts that need to be on your glass list to check if things are okay. But at least have a kind of documentation system in place that you record committed maintenance, reason for maintenance, reason for failure, what you did to prevent it, and also when things are going wrong because of the maintenance, just write it down. When maintenance has taken place for 1 year, but nothing is on paper, then you don't have evidence that the maintenance took place, but you also are introducing 50 hazards in your company, because every time when maintenance has taken place, after that you have to say this machine is ready for production again. And when you do not do that, then you're also introducing hazards. Pest control. Yeah, I don't know how it is in Sri Lanka, but in Holland, you need somebody who is certified to be able to work with pest control systems. So you really need outsource some of the elements in pest control. In Europe, we try also to use not chemicals anymore, and because of that, we have a lot of pests, and the pest control people have a lot of work. So we always keep ourselves busy. But when you have pest in your factory, try to kill it as good as possible, and don't take into account all these friendly things. And perhaps for organic production, I don't know, Bert Jan, perhaps not everything is allowed to get pest out of the factory, but as long people do not know it and the pest is gone again, I advise that, because the pest is always because the pest is always containing microorganisms that can really harm everything. So kill them as soon as possible. And anyway,
and that's what it is all about. Prevent it from happening. That is more important than afterwards.
yeah, and also when your factory is very close and they cannot enter, they can also not cause problems. So what's very important is also what you say, the structural state and possible cracks into the outdoors, possible shelters.
Prevention is prevention even more important than control, I would say.
Yeah, and make it a way of working, and when you do it every month, it's okay, and when you don't do it, at the end it will has impact. Okay, next slide. Very important, when things are not okay, you always need, from a prerequisite point of view, you always need a procedure in place for recall management. How do you deal with a recall? So we made already a procedure for that. That's based on the Europe situation, but I think it's one-on-one. You can use it for Sri Lanka. You only have to change some telephone numbers. We call our food safety authority, you call your food safety authority. When you are certified, you also need to call your certificational body within 3 days, so they know that something has happened. But at the end, it's really about doing this in a professional way. So you can and please do it also in the right way. You can better recall too much, and so that it's okay after that. And you recall 1 week of production, then that you have to start 2 recalls because you realize it went wrong 2 times. You better can have a good recall, and that's it. Okay, and also test this recall procedure once a year. So pretend that something went not okay, and how you organize for it with your crisis team, how you are, and who's talking to the media, who's talking to the customer, who's talking to the food safety authority. In Holland, it sometimes goes really wrong with recalls because the salesperson is talking to the food safety authority. That doesn't work. And also when the managing director is on television telling him that is not such a big deal, that's also not handy. You really need to have the right professional on the right moment saying if things are okay or not. And for this, you really need to do it in a professional way. Yeah, next one, please. Traceability. I think there will also be a Sri Lanka legislation for it, but in Holland, in Europe, we have the general food law really saying everything has to be traced. So you really need to know which suppliers delivered with goods, also the packaging, then what has been produced, also the packaging material, and then where it is stored and where it has been sent to. This whole flow has to be documented in such a way that you are easily able to have all the information within 4 hours, that you know where all your products are. So European legislation gives you 4 hours to have this information. So it's important, I think, to also when your quantities are too big, that you really have to automate this so that it's really that you're able to also to trace. But at the end, from a consumer point of view, you do not only want to know what's the product, but you also would like to know who was working on the product, what was the age of that person, was he or she well trained or not, did all these sustainability things, did they only work for 12 hours a day and not more? I don't know what was normal in Sri Lanka, but all this information is going to be required. You will need that in the future to please your consumer. So the better you set up your systems now for the future, the better you will also be able to do trade and to convince your consumer you have a good product. Because already was asked for sustainability. Sustainability and safety are very related to each other. Safety is what you really have to do, and sustainability is the rest you can do to make it, even more ethical, good product. But when you register it, you can share that information. We are even able to register it also digital, so then you can really give the consumer the information. This is the cookie, these were the hazards, these were the checks, and by the way, these people were all well trained and very happy and paid in a normal way. That's normal in our country, so that everybody was happy. But all this information is needed. And even in Germany, the coconuts already went to Germany. In Germany, there's now new legislation for sustainability, but also then for traceability, because they are related to each other. Because when you have to prove that things were safe or sustainable, you need to be able to trace what you were talking about. But in Germany, when a German customer is buying your products, they are responsible that everything was sustainable and ethical in your factory. They will get a fine of perhaps of 10% of their yearly turnover, because there was somebody in your factory working too many hours or not trained or whatever. So it's really for that reason all these companies are more and more stressed about what's happening in their supply chain, because they will get the fine and they will get problems when things are not going the right way. Heineken was buying a transport service in I think in Brazil, but the lorry drivers, they drove 1 day instead of 12 hours. And finally, Heineken was almost not allowed anymore to deliver to co-op supermarkets their beer, because of their not sustainable way of dealing with transport. But Heineken didn't know it, because the transportation company was lying. So what you see is that a lot of companies, bigger companies, are now really imposing companies in Asia to really be in comply, evidence-based practice, that things are really going well, because at the end they will get the problems. And also
I do see traceability now as a management tool. It's a management tool to show to your buyers and to your eventually to the consumers where it's coming from, how it's being produced. Second is it's a quality control mechanism. If something goes wrong, for instance, with the labeling or something in the food, that you know where it's coming from, with what batch that was wrong and from what supplier. So all of these things become like more of a management tool.
Yeah, and what you also see, those 3 quality standards, BRC, IFS, and FSC 22000, the ISO 22000, they will all have an appendix on sustainability, on ESG reporting. So at the end, it all comes together, but it starts with having a management system in place, having food safety systems in place, and working accordingly GMP, and then you can have more evidence about how you work. Visitors, these are just rules. We also we will share this presentation, this visitor procedure now on our website. It's really about what kind of rules do visitors have to write down. Visitors are not allowed to enter the production areas without clothing, and must always be accompanied by somebody else. But they have to wear a white overcoat or whatever, wear a hat that covers all their hair. Take off jewelry and watches, you can sell them. Wash, disinfect their hands. So a lot of things need to be done by visitors, and they also have to write down for it. And this is really also a hazard, like the products that are entering in your factory. The visitor is also somebody who does not have to be there, and when he or she is there, it's an hazard, because they can do strange things and contaminate your products. So really take that into account, that visitors, I don't like them, keep them out of your factory. Yeah, further. Food defense, the same thing with visitors. Food defense is more for those quality standards, that you really take into account what things can go wrong when people would like to purposely harm your food. So it's really about in the event of sabotage, evacuation, what can go wrong, and what have you had in place. We already have a procedure on our website of 15 pages about food defense. It's good to have that also in your quality system, but also to think about it. Do you have a fence around your factory so people cannot easily enter it? And also when people are leaving your company in not a nice way, perhaps they can put something in your product so that your product is not okay anymore, but that can also cause problems with the consumer, etc. So food defense is a very important procedure. And I think food fraud we don't have in this presentation, but it will be in the other presentation for personnel. Food fraud is also more and more an issue. On our website, we have for different product groups yearly overviews of food fraud. And what you will see that a lot of fraud is also coming out of Asia. The people are trying to sell products that are not the product that it is supposed to be. And so also food fraud you have to take into account in your way of working, because what if your suppliers are really delivering the goods that you have agreed, for example, with honey, 50% of the honey is not the honey you would like to have, the honey it to be. Take into account how these things are well.
I left it out of this presentation case because it is indeed very much related, but also getting a bit broader in scope when just talking about food safety. And the presentation was already quite long, so I took that one out, but it's indeed quite related.
Yeah, the problem is with food fraud. people, you put something else in the product, and sometimes even better. And a friend of mine, he's running a fish factory in Holland, and he didn't have Kolf, Alaska pollock anymore, a very cheap white fish. So and he was making kibbeling out of it, a nice product, heated product of fish. So that he used cod for it. I think kabeljauw is cod, hè? He was using cod for it.
Yes, cod.
Cod is 6 times more expensive than pollock. And he was using that because he didn't have the other fish. And then he got a fine and a recall because it was food fraud. He was not using the right fish on the label. So
Even
sometimes,
if it was a better fish, yeah.
yeah, that tastes better. So you really have to take into account that sometimes you do something to please your customer so you can deliver, but then at the end it's fraud. So it's, but these kind of things you have to monitor. You need to have the procedure in place, how to deal with food fraud. But I think for now it's too much. But we have these things also for you when you would like to have it. Next slide.
Yeah, we have another 25 minutes, and we have 2 more slides to go. That is on the HACCP teams, the team tasks, and to have meetings with the teams. But before we get
all
there,
right, mate. If we are all right, we are right to stay. Like
Yeah.
you know, it's late in the night, so like, we are all right.
all right, people,
As long as you have the time.
people are not getting very hungry at this stage. Okay, but just also to take a moment, if there are any questions from the participants at this stage, because we have now reviewed a lot of the, let's say, principles and steps that you need to implement as a company. Are there any questions before we move into the teams formation? Maybe Domingo, starting from your end.
But yeah, so we will be looking at the food safety later on, right? The food defense and food safety that we'll be looking at later on in detail.
In detail, we can. There's 2 ways. One is to go into the website of CASE, the QAssurance website, where you can find more information.
Okay.
And a lot of that is can be found there. Second is, as I discussed with the GLX team, is maybe to have later one-on-one sessions with the companies that are participating in the GLX program. So that's beyond this stage. I think what we will discuss next for this training is how we deal with it in formation of teams. That is the teams for the HACCP control. Yeah.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant.
Yeah. Are there any other questions related to the steps that we discussed just now? Or is it pretty clear for the participants? I don't see any questions in the chats. If you have questions, please raise your hand or just speak out. I think this is the time that you can ask CASE any more detailed questions, like if not, then we try and push on. Okay. All right. So then we continue with the presentation.
First, Bert Jan, I would like to show some food production because my son is now producing strawberries. He's making a confectionery out of it.
Okay. That means cake, or what is he making?
Braamsjam.
Oh, he's making jam.
Yeah, jam. It's very nice.
So am I invited?
I hope he puts a lot of alcohol in it.
Okay, so CASE, we have another 20 minutes to continue on the tasks and the team formation for HACCP protocols. So go ahead.
Yeah, because the most important thing is we spoke about the HACCP study, the prerequisite program, the handbook, and the things you have in place for your company. But the most important thing is that you have also a kind of HACCP team, a group of people that are dealing with food safety in general and take into account that things are also okay in the future. Because the problem is when you are now having a right quality system in place and you are changing your recipes or you're changing your packaging or processing or whatever, or the legislation is changing, you need to monitor that. So you have to organize yourself in such a way that you know what's the current status of the requirements from a quality standard point of view, customer point of view, and legislation point of view, but also what is changing. Yeah, because there's one thing that's for sure, everything is changing all the time, and the rules are only getting more and more and more and more. So it's good to be organized for that, so that you really know that you're doing the right things. And the way it's always organized is by HACCP teams. So every by law, every food company has to have a HACCP team. That has to be in the handbook written down who is in the team, why the persons are in the team, and what are the tasks of the HACCP team. So in this case, it's essential that that you also have sufficient experience in your HACCP team. So when you don't have all the information, then you can also just use an external party to help you as input. And we, for example, can also just to attend once of your meetings in a Zoom session, and then you also have that expertise in your team. But it's important that you are doing the right things. Because also it costs how can you say it? It will cost a lot of money when you are doing the wrong things. Then you can better invest in doing the right things. But the most important thing is from a management point of view, give the team really approval of management and support them, that they really are also able to discuss 1 hour a month or a quarter the HACCP status of your company. Because even when I'm training people in Europe, a lot of food companies do not know who's in their team, do not know where the study is, and a lot of times the HACCP team is not a team. They are just input for the quality manager saying what has been changed. But the most important thing is that it's really a team that can defend your study. So get 2 or 3 people in your company that really understand the raw material study, the process study, the prerequisites, and really also know where the information is. So you really can build on that also when people are on holiday or are not there. That's the same what Richard of Highfield was addressing. It's important that there's always somebody in the company that knows everything about food safety. And you can do that with the right HACCP team. Next slide, please. Because then we have, I think, the meetings on it. Yeah, the meeting itself. Hey, Bert, goes back, please. We need another photo for this. This is not a meeting in Sri Lanka. This is a meeting in Germany.
Yes, we should get one. So Camille, you have to organize a picture from Sri Lanka.
Last time we used this presentation for Uganda, so they did not complain about it.
Yeah. Well, the people look pretty white.
Anyway, the next slide, please. There has a team meeting. The most important thing is a fixed frequency. I think once a quarter is more than enough. And bigger companies have it once a month. It all depends on how much are things changing. Are you doing always the same thing? Less is changing than when you're not always doing the same thing. But also what Bert Jan was saying, also when you're doing always the same thing can change because of the requirements of the consumer, or because of suddenly they found a lot of pesticides in the soil. So really take into account what kind of frequency is good. But the HACCP team is responsible for an up-to-date and effective food safety system. That also things are taken are really also happening. So when pest control is, yeah.
But if I may, Case, and because you said maybe once a quarter or whatever, but in the beginning it's about creating a culture. So the creation of a culture to deal with it in the beginnings requires a lot of investment in time and energy, and even, I mean, if I look at my own company, cleaning procedures or whatever, food products, I really need to install it. And when I tell them, it doesn't help. When I tell them 2 times, it doesn't help. But to create a culture that every time something goes wrong, to be on the spot, on the and mediate at place, and then training and cultivating that in a factory is crucial. So after some time, it becomes nurtured by all the people who are part of the system.
Yeah,
but that takes a lot of time.
But then I think what you say, you talk about a system, and that's important. You need the right
Yes.
infrastructure in place
Yes.
and roles and responsibilities. Because Bert Jan, when nobody in your office is responsible to clean it, nobody will do it.
Yes. Well,
And then you can say it's a
we
more,
now have a nice list. Huh?
yeah, and then you
Saying,
can say it's
this
a more
week is this
culture,
person,
but
this week it's culture.
the culture is a result. A bad culture is a result of bad management systems.
Hey, that's a very good point. No, I think that, yeah, no, it's true. This is why it's so difficult to change it in a company. Is indeed it comes from the management to start with. Yeah.
Yeah, and also
Correct. Yeah, I think when it comes to Asian context,
Yes.
Asian context, the culture matters more than the systems, I would say. I mean, being experienced in both the
but the
Yeah, but maybe
culture is a result.
let him
Yeah.
explain. Domingo, please go ahead.
Yeah, so when been experiencing both the environments, like, that's something, I have a conflict with every day. Like, I'm a systems person, but then, like, when it comes to Sri Lankan, particularly when you say like Asian cultures, like, Asian people, they are more into culture than system. I mean, system should be in place, correct, but then, like, we should embed in them, like, this is what they want, but this is the quality that we want, this is exactly what we want from you, and in a cultural perspective, like, so because, I mean, if you take an Asian person, like, he's more into culture and the cultural systems than like an alien system that we in place on them, like.
True, and I think that's what you say. Huh? The first line, food system, is up to date and effective. So effective means that it is cultured, and the people are aware, and they act.
Now, it's very simple. But when you visit a factory and you see it's clean, then you know things are happening. Then I don't even do not need to know the culture because it's clean. So the culture is
true.
okay.
No, but then it means case that it has been cultured.
Yeah.
And it is in place and it is effective. So, but to change the mindset of people,
you can play with systems, right? I mean, there are so many ways to play with the system, but then, like, when you embed into the culture, I mean, system and culture both are important. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's like 50-50. Like, you can't just have the system but not developing the culture. That doesn't work with. Especially what I have experienced with is our people is like, you can't, like, just implement a system. They find some of the loophole to, like, jump out of it. So, like, but then if you have the culture in place, then they work with the culture. Like, they can adapt to a culture.
Yeah, and I'll give you one example. Huh? So, Kees, Agria in the Philippines, and we were talking about plastic coming from farm into the food system in the products, even when they are processing. And so we sort of articulated that and started to discuss with the staff, and in the end, they started seeing it. I mean, they needed explanation that these small particles eventually end up in food system and in little children when they are fed by their mothers. And you want to prevent that. It starts at the farm level, but to change that culture on the farm needs that they understand why it is so important. Second is, what happened as a result is they not only cleaned plastic from all the fields, but they started removing plastics from all around up to the beaches. So, and then they have a fantastic CSR story now for this whole company that shows that they have understood and they have implemented even better than just beyond the factory. And then it becomes like, when we talk about sustainability and all these things, it becomes like a narrative. And I think that's essentially what we are now discussing with the companies in Sri Lanka, is that if we nurture that culture and we put it into the systematic approaches, then eventually your whole company system will also benefit. Yeah, I think it's one of the struggles that we have when we talk about food systems change.
Correct.
So you have to understand, Kees, your work is going beyond just HACCP and food safety. It's like a culture of good management practice. Yeah, and eventually sustainability.
Yeah, but But the nice thing is, we talk about that culture then in Sri Lanka or in Asia, but when you also look to the culture then in Rotterdam, here in the Netherlands, but what we have companies that are doing 100 million euro turnover with peanuts, but then they are checking the cleaning and hygiene environment, and it's not clean, and they write down it's not clean. But because nobody is responsible to clean it, they just write down every time it's not clean, it's not clean, it's not clean, it's not clean. But nobody picks it up because nobody is responsible.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
all-
you mean with systems.
Things have to be in place, and of course, you need to take into account that a country has a culture, and people have a culture, but you also have a way of working together. And of course, they are related to each other, and you also have to know how things are organized. Because in Holland, you can say to somebody, "You did not do your job in a good way." But I think in a lot of Asian countries, you can better say, "Can you might think about this?"
Oh, true. And this is what also Domingo is saying, that 50%, you need to have the culture, but also the system. So also the responsible people in place. That's crucial, of course.
Yeah, and the most important thing is a common goal. And when everybody wants that cookie is the best cookie of Sri Lanka, everybody will do their best.
Hmm.
And then things will also happen.
Okay.
And I think, Bert Jan, for your office, your unique selling point is not that you have a clean office. I think nobody cares about.
It's okay. I'm exaggerating a bit. It's quite okay. It's also to do with young people. You need to train them a bit. Yeah.
Repeat.
Repeat. Yeah. True.
But also important when we talk about the HACCP team, take into account we have new processes when you have suddenly a chocolate on your cookie or your product is halal or organic or whatever. Then also your HACCP, your processes will change because you're introducing new concepts. Also, when the legislation is changing or consumer issues are changing, really take it into account. In this case. Last week, I thought there was a post about Sri Lanka that the whole government is working on new export activities.
There are some new policies and activities in place. Yeah, the EDB together with GIZ and Europe are working a lot on export performance.
Finally, they thought about it, looking into new ventures.
Yeah.
I mean, EDB has been always about a few ventures and a few businesses.
Yeah.
So they're trying to expand it. Yes, they're trying to expand the portfolio.
And true, that the SMEs compared to the bigger plantation companies, so to say, have a lot of value to offer. And this is, of course, what we are focusing on with the GLX program, is that all these SMEs, they can be innovators of doing things different. And that includes what we were just talking about, food safety issues, but beyond sustainability issues and monitoring and having a different management system in place, because most of the things that Kees is talking about is about management practice. And if you have that in place, then the next steps of, let's say, sustainability, CSR issues become so much more added value for the companies. If people start in Europe, the buyers start to recognize that Sri Lanka has, for instance, compared because India, for instance, has a lot of issues with food safety practices. Now, you want to avoid that you're put in the same batch as Indian companies, that people start seeing Sri Lanka as the same, with having a lot of food safety issues. And so it's very timely that we are doing these exercises.
Correct, very correct.
We have another 5 minutes. Are there very urgent questions? Yes, go ahead, Kees.
We say here the meetings are reported. When you do your meetings by Zoom, you can all record your HACCP meetings. That's also good.
Yeah,
they have all your evidence in place.
True, and I tell you that because like me, with her Gotukula products, she had to leave the meeting, but she's still thanking you also for for, let's say, what we are presenting, and that she has started documenting, recording, and practicing on certified GMP, good manufacturing practice, and HACCP. So I think it's very timely, and companies are starting, and I'm sure also that they will have many more questions also later for you, and that they will visit your website also, because it's good for the participants to understand that QAssurance is one of the few platforms that's very open and transparent and has all these practices with examples online available. So it is a bit technical. It is a lot of information that you may have to look, but you can also ask us if you have any particular questions to find that information on the site. Yeah, and but I'm sure you guys are familiar with search operations online, so most of the time you can find it. But I think, as I said, it's a very timely meeting that we are having, and I'm hoping that this will be a starting point for doing more work on the food safety, implementing good manufacturing. So, Domingo, was this information useful for you as a company?
Mate, it's brilliant. Like, I mean, like this insight has, I'm thinking so many avenues that we can go through with the insight we have got from this from this seminar, and it's brilliant, mate. It's brilliant. A lot of information that we should process and we should implement in our systems. It's brilliant.
Okay.
And I'm very thankful that you all did this whole seminar as well. Yes.
Yeah, I got a lot of requests from the
QAs are
companies.
online, so they will have a lot of work to do from tomorrow.
Okay, good. Good. No, I mean, I got a lot of requests from the companies on, okay, can you tell us a bit more on food safety issues and how to implement HACCP? And I hope this this meeting has at least given this first steps on how to organize it. Yeah. So maybe
It's
Irandra,
brilliant, man. It's brilliant.
Okay, Irandra, was it useful for you? Irandra, if you can unmute. Has this been helpful if you travel to Europe next? Looking for audio, I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's actually helpful for me. Yeah, I learn a lot of things. So I got some screenshots, so I can use this to revise later. So
Okay,
that would be
and
helpful.
the meeting will also be shared. The presentation will be shared later. So then we get also the links. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me see who else. Niranjani. Niranjani Pillai. Any feedback from your side?
Hi, yes, it was very informative. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for having us being as participants for this particular meeting. I'm actually into organic spices.
Okay.
So we have the Sri Lankan certified for organic 2013-2018 given by the Control Union for turmeric, ginger, and pepper.
Okay.
But still, we do not have we don't have the quantity of supplying overseas. So at the moment, it's only local that we supply. We have our own estate of an acre, which we have newly put vanilla plants as well as sweet potato, 4 varieties of sweet potato.
Okay, and spices and vanilla are also part of the GLX. Some of the companies are doing it, also in smaller volumes. So I've also been noticing that it would be good if companies are harmonizing their trying to work together to get to more critical volume.
Yes.
Sweet potato is, of course.
We might need the sweet potatoes.
Okay.
And sweet potato is a very healthy,
Yeah, we
very
just
healthy food.
we just announced the Okinawa sweet potato, which is in purple color.
Oh, lovely. Yes. We are
So
looking for
we
that.
had a
actually.
small pop-up sale actually done by the Animal Justice for Animals early July. And
That's Alut Pola, is it?
yeah, that's the Alut Pola. So it was a hit
Hey, we were there as
for
well.
us. Yeah.
So if you guys are starting to do business together, then Kees and I will.
Kamil, can I have a contact?
Pardon?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah, okay, brilliant.
no, I just want to know sorry, I missed your name. Do you mind saying that again?
Niranjani.
Niranjani, right? Niranjani, did you register on that form? If not, I wouldn't have your contact.
You mean this meeting form, is it?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I in fact registered under Koskama Kama. I'm actually promoting one of my mother's products, which is Narang
All
juice,
right.
a concentrated Narang juice.
Love it.
That's
Okay.
also from the garden. So I registered through that, but when it came to this certifications and things, adventures, I think previously also I came to one of your events at Dilma Lounge at Quad Place on Horton
Right.
Place.
Yes.
So yeah.
So you see,
Oh.
Kees, we have to travel to Sri Lanka and see all these nice things happening. Because even however small you are and thinking about scaling and working together, start also documenting and applying some of these systems that will be so good. Even for local market, it's quite important.
Also,
Kamil, please send me her contact.
Yeah, sure. Just want to clarify that Niranjani, the contact number you gave there is yours, right?
Yes, correct. That's my number.
Okay, perfect. I'll pass it.
Brilliant,
Okay.
brilliant.
No, but Jan, in the past we called our program always the food export program. But when you have a good local market, you don't need the export. They can then we can better also use it. We changed the name also now in global market program. Because also from a CO2, how do you call it, emission point of view, it's very, you can better sell local than global.
Yeah, and also Anusha thanking us for the informative session. No, I mean, sharing is learning together. And this is why I always opt for this type of sessions, that not a very formal training, but try and see how we interact together, because that's where you learn most from. Yeah. So Sharman, any feedback from your side? Sharman?
It's really informative.
Yes.
Love this session. Thank you.
Okay, and what is it that you do?
Well, it gave me a lot of insight on actually when we are working with a company who is providing us the knowledge to do this, to get this ISO certificate. We don't get all the information that we need. I mean, like learning, right? So I got that from here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Suraj? Suraj, are you available? Or otherwise, Mr. Dhanapala, you were also putting a comment in the chat box. You were talking about attitude and change in attitude. Is that correct? Mr. Dhanapala? Okay. Available audio. There's Manuri. Manuri, some feedback from your side? Or Kalpani?
Kalpani is from my team, Bert Jan.
Okay.
Actually, she's joining from the company desktop, so she doesn't have voice.
Ah, okay. Okay, no worries. Good to know. And Anusha?
Anusha, are you online, darling? She's also from my team. Bert Jan, she's getting married in 3 days.
Oh my!
Yeah, she's actually at her bridal dressing now. She's trying out her dress.
Hey, are we invited for the wedding? I know that Sri Lankan weddings are top.
Is it also with a white horse?
Sri Lankan weddings are a feast, man.
Yes.
You should join one.
Yes. Okay, Anusha is also
that's a feast.
yeah, Anusha is also confirming that she has no microphone. So we wish her.
So she's in the other dressing.
Yeah, we wish her a fantastic wedding. Huh?
Thanks, man. She would be really happy to hear that.
Yes. Then Sharmika, any feedback?
Thank you. Learned a lot about good production and maintenance practices, starting from local market and looking at exports as well. I'm representing 3x3 granola, where we produce a local granola for the local market, and also dehydrating fruits and vegetables, thinking about introducing a local, like the local fruits and into the granola, like the mangoes,
Nice.
pineapples, bananas, which we have in plenty, and none can match our taste, of our fruits and vegetables. So,
and I think that's crucial to maintain the taste and the smell of fresh compared to dehydrated. At the same time, with dehydrated, there may be also some food safety issues. Huh? Are you aware?
like what?
Case. Can you explain a bit with dehydration what potential risks are there?
Now, when you dehydrate, the amount of chemicals goes 10 times more, of course, because it's more concentrated. And when you have, for example, the powder forms, you can also introduce salmonella in powders that people are not aware of. So these are things that can grow.
You mean in fruits and vegetables as well? Salmonella?
No, but more when things are in powder form, then salmonella is sometimes suddenly a hazard that can occur that people do not take into account. So there's a general hazard for powders.
Mate, does it count under ISO? If the supply is ISO certified, would it cover under that?
Now you always have to ask them how they cover that hazard. So based on your hazard study, you can say, "Hey, I want to have salmonella-free herbs or whatever, or powders," and then it's part of your purchase agreement. So it's always important to have the right purchase agreements in place, and that they, for example, then send a certificate of analysis that they can show that it's really free of what you are fearing.
How does the phytosanitary certificate come into effect?
Anusha, that's something we have to note down, darling. We have to test this thing because we are using a lot of dehydrated powder. So I'm sorry, mate. Like, we are using a lot of dehydrated powder, so that's something we have to check on this. We'll do that.
And for you, if you still have a heating process at the end, then the salmonella is gone, eh?
Pardon me?
When you also have a heating process in place, salmonella will just not be present anymore in your end product, and also they do not produce toxins. So then the acid is
We
also
haven't tested positive for salmonella yet in our end product. We do the check because we use eggs. So because of that, we do the test at the end of. We test the end product, but then it's always good to be on the safe side, right?
Yeah, a lot of things here with the entry check. You have the entry check on products, but yeah, the most important thing is the purchase agreement. But did you really agree what kind of microbiological entry numbers you are allowed or not?
But maybe for Shamika, is that also clear for you?
Somewhat, but then I think I'll have to look into that and do some studies on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can always contact us, send a mail, or we can plan a Zoom, and we can also you just help.
Thank you.
No problem.
Bert Jan, can you excuse me for a minute?
Sure.
Shamika, are you going to brand your granulas under your brand, or are you willing to do a corporate like partnership?
Actually,
I got your name right.
Yes, it's actually my son who is behind all this, and I help him out. I'm part of the company.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes. So
are you willing to do a partnership?
I will have to ask him, and maybe we can get in touch with you.
Brilliant.
So Camille, I think it will be good if you can share let's say, a small Excel sheet with all the names and contact details of the participants. So
Yes.
we might exchange and share a bit.
Yes, I actually, I know, Shamika, I know your son Jonathan, isn't it? So
yes,
yeah, I can link him up with Hiruda as well. Yeah, but I will share the details in a Excel sheet so everyone can, refer to it.
Okay, and I see that Niranjani is also thanking for the informative session. Okay, anyone else that likes to share a bit of what you've learned or still have a question? Case is still here, so you might challenge him a bit more.
First I thought, first I thought we started 5 Central European time, but it was earlier.
Yes. So, Kalpani, any questions still?
She doesn't have the audio
right.
with mates. I'm sorry.
Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, we can start calling it a day. And then if there's any follow-up questions, Camille maybe also can take care of making a bit of inventory of remaining questions. And then we can deal with that later. I think for me, I feel that we have touched upon something that has been useful for the participants. It's a starting point, and sometimes it looks like a whole lot of work and a whole lot of information, documenting, training. But in the end, it's all about good manufacturing practice and good management practices. Once you start doing this, you will also start to see that the efficiencies in the company also increases. And in the end, it's very helpful. What I said about my own company in terms of cleaning, it's not enough that I just talk about it and mention it. I need to put the systems in place, and I need to nurture and culture it. So,
Bert Jan, can I disturb you for a bit, because Kalpani sent me a message to ask you a question.
Okay.
She has WhatsApp me. Let me read that for you.
Sure.
She wants to know whether ISO and HACCP has a difference.
She means ISO and, she means HACCP and ISO 22000. And Case is better to explain.
But that's what she means.
ISO 22000 is much broader, but it's the whole management structure. But Case, maybe you explain better.
Yeah, you have the HACCP written down by the codex. That's phase 1. Then you have ISO 22000. That's also about the management system in place for HACCP. And then you have FSCC 22000, and then you also add the prerequisite, the technical scheme of FSCC. So, so there are 3 steps. HACCP you always need as a food company. ISO 22000 you can do to get certified, and a lot of companies will then already be certified enough. But when you would really like to be completely certified for international business, you need to be FSCC 22000 certified. Then you're certified for your management system, but also you're certified for your prerequisites system for the technical scheme.
And in that case, maybe you can indicate the steps from HACCP to ISO to FSSC. Are these big steps or are these incremental steps?
Yeah, when you have written down your HACCP in the right way and your prerequisite and the procedures are in place, then you can use the, how can you say it, the infrastructure of ISO 22000 to really write down the right procedures. So ISO 22000 will guide you more to write down what you have to write down from a management point of view. And when your prerequisite program is okay for HACCP, for the codex, then FSCC will only have some additional questions about food defense, allergy management, and they also comply with that. So usually you'll see from a time point of view, in 1 month you have your HACCP in place, in 2 months you can get your ISO 22000 in place, and in 3 months you can get the whole management system in place.
And if you have FSSC 22000, you're also in compliance with BRC, for instance?
Yes, that's the same level as BRC and IFS. So FSCC 22000 is the highest level of certification, but a lot of times in Asia and in Africa, they are only certified for ISO 22000, because ISO 22000 can also be a remote audit. And you don't need an auditor to go to your factory. You can do it online. It's cheaper.
Oh, okay. So this is something I also came across, Bert Jan, when it comes to the control union, the cathode they have given, they have also mentioned the BRC. So is it better to go with BRC or is it better to go with ISO 22000? What would be the better solution when it comes to European market?
Depends first also on your buyer. Identifying market segments and your buyers, and they will determine. Like BRC, often people are saying, yeah, it's more for the British market. But if you have BRC, it's also easy to get into the other European markets. But it depends very much on what buyers are looking for. So I always say in the export marketing planner that we discussed, you have your business audit and you have your market audit. In the market audit, you define the let's say countries, market segments where you want to end up. Start looking into what kind of requirements do they have. Do I want to go into retail or do I want to go into specialty markets? Some of the specialty buyers, they have their own requirements. So it depends a bit on the type of buyer you're looking for. But maybe Case, from your perspective, from a food safety perspective, what is your answer to it?
Oh, you can just choose BRC, IFS, FSCC 22000. They're all almost the same. So it just depends on what your customer would like to have. But it really doesn't matter. Yeah. It's more from an auditing point of view. BRC, IFS is more a checklist. So you have less discussion with your auditors, there or not. And FSCC is a management system audit. So they give more freedom to the auditor. So when you have a nice auditor, then it's an advantage. But when your auditor is not a nice person, it's a disadvantage.
Correct. It depends on the audit at the end of the day.
Yeah, 80% of your certification is completely auditor dependent.
Correct. We have a good experience in that case, yes.
And just to say that...
Kalpana, did you ask your question?
Hold on, just to confirm that Mr. or Mrs. Dhanapala has also excused and also left the meeting. Yes, please go ahead. Next question.
Yeah, all right, Bert. Yeah, we are clear. We are clear on the ISO and HACCP. We are clear. beyond the clear.
I think that I would like to address, because of course I always like to sell my system. For BSc, IFS, and FSC, we have a mobile solution that your complete quality handbook is online, also on your telephone, and also all the checks are online. And usually within 10 days or something of implementation, you are completely ready for certification.
Oh, lovely,
So
lovely.
it's completely predefined, and we already have. Yes.
Lovely. Can you please share the link as well? I think that's useful for everyone.
Sorry, the link of the website or the link for that
Yes,
mobile
it's on the
system?
website. Yes, where we can
Also
get this
the same,
the system download.
Yeah, what I will write down now is just the link to the GMP stuff. But when you go to the main page, it's already mentioned what we really do. Also GMP. So this is the GMP site. So there we have all the GMP information for everybody. But in general, we offer IMUS Food, and there's this mobile platform to be always real-time certified for everything. Okay.
Lovely, 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 lovely. That's brilliant.
Okay.
We'll definitely have it today.
Fantastic.
Anusha, come out of the bridal dressing and let me know. So we are looking to this.
True, true. So, Camille, are you still there?
It's sleeping time in Sri Lanka, or not?
No, it's
not yet. Not yet.
It's,
not yet. Not yet.
it's eating time.
Way
I think.
Oh, it's eating
The night
time.
is still young.
That's
The
right,
night
dinner-
is still young.
I think people must be hungry. So, Camille, is it okay with you now? Is clear also? And maybe, as I said, so maybe we follow up a bit on what are the remaining questions and how to follow up on these.
Yeah, sure. So I have in that form, I have included our email address over there. Anyone or anyone who everyone was registered will have access to that, so they can send their questions to our email address. If not, just
And Kamil, whatever information and links that were shared, we'll collect, since we have the emails of the folks that registered, we'll map
do an
map
Excel.
out the
We're doing-
information
yeah,
and get them to throw our questions as well.
sure.
Oh, that's brilliant.
The meeting is recorded, so people can look at that later.
Correct.
Brilliant.
All right. Yeah, from my side, and I'm sure maybe Kees also has some final words, but I'd like to thank all the participants. It's been a very interesting meeting. I like doing this with this engagement.
Yeah, but Jan, I also would like to give you a compliment. You did it very well.
That's okay. No, we've been doing several trainings now. It's really nice working with you, Kees. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Not too emotional.
Yes. So, and one day I hope that we will get to Sri Lanka to enjoy and see all the companies in practice. Yeah, that will be fun.
Please do come. You all are invited completely, both of you all. Just
you.
Please do come. Yes.
Thank you very much.
But we are not paying for the ticket price, by the way.
Thank you. And Camille also, thank you for organizing the training. I think it's been fantastic.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It was an amazing session, especially y'all, the energy y'all brought into this, very candid and raw and really informative. And yeah, I think the crowd also benefited from it. I think Hirude very much the most. So yeah, thank you for that. Let's looking forward to do another session. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And then I wish everyone good success in the business. And if there's anything else, just send us questions and we'll get back to you.
Cheers, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
How you doing? Okay. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Gaat dat?